Okay, it's 6:04 p.m. on January 17th, 2024. We'll call to order a regular meeting of the Board of Education. Silence electronic devices, please, and we'll stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Sue, do we have any additions, deletions to the agenda? No? Okay. Looking at the minutes of the January 3rd meeting, is there a motion to accept those minutes? Jackie, second. Kristen? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Okay. We have a hearing and petition form here for a matter that's on the agenda for this evening. So, Mr. Ted Smith, would you like to come up now and address the board? Anytime you're ready. Okay, we're ready.
I'll do it really quick. Good evening, everybody. Real quick, just first, I want to thank Jean for facilitating that code of conduct meeting we had. I'm sure that'll come up this evening. I think it was a good discussion. And thanks for the enormous board presence and interest there. I know we had Mr. Coyne, Ms. Burns, Ms. Potter, Mr. Bedinati, and an observing Mr. Deo. It's really nice to know that you guys are interested in this important discussion about school climate and safety and stuff. I just want to make a quick comment about the violence in the workplace policy statement that's on the agenda for this evening. The language looks great to RCSTA. For those of you who don't know, and you probably all do at this point, is teachers were carved out of that legislation years ago and we're now looped back in. And we think that's a really important thing to have happen. Schools are unique and they do offer the potential for violence against staff and against teachers in sort of unusual, unpredictable ways. And it's important for us to have protocols that protect everybody's workplace so we can make the school good for all our kids. So we look forward to working more on that. I know we've spoken here at Labor Relations about the next steps, and we just look forward to participating in that and making sure we do right by everybody. So thanks so much.
Thanks, Ted. All right, moving into business considerations. We have 6.1 through 6.9. Is there a motion to approve one roll? Jenny, okay, second. Kristen, any discussion?
I have a couple of things.
Sure.
I'm sorry that Mrs. Augustinoni isn't here, because my one question is about the Committee on Special Education. It says, as a result, from November to January, there were 44 students approved. How is that number determined? I guess it seemed like a pretty big number for that period of time, but is that like a rolling number? Or is that new students that were approved for IEPs?
I think it's a product of the annual reviews.
From November to January?
Yeah, they start around that time. I'm not positive though. I'm just making.
For what age group do they start for that?
I'm not sure what the order is.
Majority of them are likely program reviews. So meetings that were scheduled to make amendments to the IEPs, because the real heart of annual review season doesn't start until the beginning of February.
Right. So is it saying that 44 students have new IEPs, or there were changes made to the existing IEPs?
It's a combination of the two.
Okay.
41 at the last one.
Because that's what I was doing. I was looking back over the numbers, and if
There's
the
a
numbers
lot.
track, then there's a lot of students that have IEPs.
There's a lot of meetings, not.
Right, but this one's saying 44 students approved individual education plans for 44 students. So that's not just a meeting discussing them, they have an IEP. They are now considered a classified student, in my understanding at least.
This number doesn't break out initials versus program review.
Okay,
So I wouldn't count that as 44 new students.
okay. But still, the 39 from the previous one and the 44 from this one, that's quite a large.
It's a lot of
Okay.
meetings.
I just want to make sure that in the budget process, we're accounting for the population that we're serving and that the appropriate funds are given to those departments and the supports are in place for those students to be successful. That's a pretty big number to be looking at supporting with existing staff and student
Is it
resources.
possible, I mean, to that end, is it possible maybe moving forward that it could be broken down in some ways, just on these to say that, you know, how many of them are new versus that they are reviews of existing ones, just so that it's a little bit clearer to see, you know, if one of these is new and 43 are renewals, that's one thing. If it's, you know, 43 are new and one is a renewal, I think that's.
But it would be a change of some kind in order for the IEP to need to be approved. So either an addition or deletion of a service, and those would need to be accounted. I guess with the upcoming budget, I really want to make sure that we have the appropriate funds in the appropriate places to service all the students within the district to the best of our ability, and so that they can be as successful as possible. Because within a shorter period of time, that's 70-something students. Unless it's the same children's IEPs over and over, and then I guess my question begs, why are we changing them so frequently?
I don't see a problem. I think that would be easy to do, to say new versus review.
Okay, that was my first question. For the internal claims report. Sorry. This isn't about the report itself, it's just about a line item in there, and then an existing question I have that I guess I'll ask now. It could also kind of fall under new business, so if you'd rather me wait till then, just let me know. But there's $1,600 for Yankee Trails for athletics. Is that a bus for a sports team that was going somewhere?
Yeah, so what that happens is if we don't have enough drivers, that's the last second thing that we have to put together.
Okay,
And sometimes it's actually really last minute, like Craig will call up and say, hey, we don't have a driver.
Right.
Can you do this? And yeah, so, and then they give us a quote.
so I guess this kind of goes along with my other question. I'll just wait for new business for that one, though.
So that, but this necessarily, it could be that, but they also, was it November, December, when they played down in Middletown? Did they go Yankee Trails that time? No?
I don't oppose the cost, I'm just curious about that in comparison to my other kind of question.
What was your other question?
About how funds are given to busing for field trips from the schools. Because as part of the PTA and the PTSO, they're often asking us for funds to help with their field trips. And if one of our goals is to get the students out of the classroom and experiencing, the cost of the busing alone is preventing the teachers from being able to go a lot of places, even local places like Stanton's Dairy Farm. That's within our district bounds. I don't imagine that Stanton's is charging them a lot, so it
That's
seems,
definitely
I don't know
not
how that
good.
works.
Yeah, I mean, we have a calculation based on our expenses for, that gets transferred from the field trip line and expensed, so it gets moved over, so the cost of the driver and then estimated mileage and
I guess
wear and tear on the buses. We calculate that every year based on previous years' amounts, and that's how we do it. I would never, I mean, if teachers do have issues with that, they need to reach out, because I haven't gotten anything like that. I wouldn't, if that's an issue, then, you know, we need to know, we try to figure something out.
Yeah, I guess my concern was if we're able to spend $1,600 on emergency busing for athletics, we should kind of be affording the same privilege to the students within the classrooms that are going on.
Again,
Field trips. I
more
don't
than-
have nothing against
More than happy
athletics.
to look at it.
Okay.
I'm very open to making things work. I don't want to limit anything educational-wise to students based on finances. If I'm all within my control, I'll figure it out.
Okay, because I know they get a certain amount per grade or per school for the field
But again,
trips.
if we can figure it out if we need to.
Just as a sidebar to this, I've had parents in the community and approach me about, you know, geez, well, why isn't there any more field trips? There's no field trips anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to hear what you said.
Yeah, and also, we've kind of put it in our budget process this year for the building principals to kind of lay it out for us, say, hey, this is what we're thinking next year for the field trip, so we can try to budget appropriately.
Okay. So my next question is on 6.5. In the budget transfers, one of them stated that we need to transfer money for the SRO contract and overtime. I'm just curious, what time frame did that increase or rate cover? And is that something that's going to continue to happen, or is it like a set time frame?
So they do some work with like sporting events and stuff like that. And also what we didn't budget for was, they were there for Discovery Camp.
Okay.
So that's something we will
Okay.
be putting into the budget for this coming year.
Okay, makes sense.
And also it went up a little bit more than we expected.
The contract with
Their
them.
regular contract, yep.
So when we sign a contract, it's for a year's time period or something
I
along
believe
those
so.
lines?
I haven't had my eyes on it, but it's a year at a time, right? For the
Or a
SRO?
period of
Oh,
time
bless
more
you.
than a month? Bless you.
Generally, I mean, we don't sign contracts over a year.
Okay.
But it's for a year contract, right, for the SROs?
Yeah, I think we just approved that,
Yeah. Right.
like a couple meetings ago.
So that wouldn't include, we do a side thing for overtime, like estimated overtime, so we can budget appropriately. We just were not prepared for it this year, so that's why we needed to do a budget transfer.
So do we have a better idea of what it may look like moving forward if we
Yeah,
have them at certain
absolutely. Yep,
sporting
yep.
events and such?
It's, again, it's in the budget discussion this year for
Okay.
additional overtime and Discovery Camp if we need it as well.
Okay, thank you.
And this is just curiosity, I don't have any issue with our SROs, but we go through the sheriff's office.
Yep.
Correct?
That's correct.
Is there any comparison, or does the Queens Police Department offer anything similar? Have we reached out to see? I'm just wondering, only because they're both located obviously in town. I was just curious if we've looked into whether or not Queens Police Department would be supportive in comparison to the sheriffs, if they can offer anything different, or if they can offer, different pricing or anything like that. I'm just curious if there's,
Well,
Okay, that's-
We would have to contract with Bethlehem also, because Becker falls within Bethlehem PD's.
sure.
jurisdiction.
Yeah, I think the reason
Fair enough.
initially
do all,
was
yeah.
because the sheriff's department covers our whole district.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Where if we had to go with the individual PDs, we'd be doing.
No, it makes sense. I didn't think of the fact that you guys are under Bethlehem, not under Queens. I was just curious if we had looked into it.
Our first
Like I said, I have no problems with
But
our
I do
SROs.
think Queens will back up Peter B. or something like that.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Yeah, they would,
Yep.
I know that they're certainly around.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if there was any,
Yeah, I think the staff and then Albany County.
yeah, that makes sense. I appreciate that.
Our first SROs, Jackie, worked through the Queens PD.
Oh, okay.
And then we got an Albany County Sheriff, we got Queens PD, and in the end, as Kristen accurately surmised, staffing becomes an issue. At the time, I think Queens PD had one full-time staff member and the rest were itinerant.
Yeah,
It was
and I
difficult.
certainly don't want to reduce the policing around town either to, reduce that. Like I said, I was just curious if there was, any comparison between the two police departments in town. But I think all of the explanations here make sense. Thank you.
No, they don't. Like supplies for garage.
I'm all set with questions personally.
Ed and I are just looking, we're still on 6.5, looking at that spreadsheet.
I was just going to say to all of you, when you open those PDFs, they're sideways that you've probably figured it out, but right in the center of your screen at the top in the black bar is something that looks like a diamond with an arrow around it. If you hit that, it rotates the document so that you can see them correctly.
The items for software and contractual services, what are those for? Is that relating to the GPS? Okay.
That's all related to what we're gonna discuss in a little bit.
Is that the total cost to
It
outfit
was
the buses with
110.
GPS? So where's the 110? Does it-
We had some money already in the budget. This was, we took money from
Okay.
the contracted buses line, where we were able to pull in some additional runs because we have the software back in-house. So we had savings in that line, so we took the savings from that line, and we're gonna move it over to pay for these GPSs and additional information.
So the $27,000 for software, that's going towards bus GPS?
Yep.
And then the contractual services, is that also part?
That's to install stuff and some PD for for the drivers and administration.
Okay.
And, like some time if you have questions and that kind of stuff.
Okay. And the $46,000 supplies for the garage, is that
So
also
that's
part of
the
GPS?
actual, the tablets and the actual GPSs.
Okay.
I think, right, Craig? I think I got them all.
All right, thanks.
Yep. And this is one of the reasons why we wanted to do a presentation tonight, because it is a lot of money that we're moving, and we want to make sure you understand exactly why we're doing this and what you're going to get out of it. Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be during my section. Yep.
Okay. Anything else, Jenny? Anybody else?
One
Yeah.
quick, 6.4. Day automation, Jesse, is that like the automation for everything in the district, for the controls of the heating systems, software?
Yeah, so we've been using day automation for the camera systems. Let me just.
Yeah. The two things, their installation of our camera
Yes.
systems, which they've been doing at the elementary schools. And they'll also, although that's not this money, they will be doing the install on our automated digital interior key lock systems. This summer, ideally, the elementary school, and then next summer, the high school, middle school, so all the doors have badge access. It's the same, that company will be going forward and doing that as well.
Is there, so that big dollar amount, is that just for installation, or is that like a yearly service charge for the automation of it?
No, that's the cameras. We did a big install of the cameras at the elementary schools.
Okay.
Yep.
They were in there pulling wire that one day we took a tour of
Yeah,
Becker.
who was with us? Yeah.
Peter
Yep,
Reed.
yep.
Yeah, no, I saw them, I was just wondering, thank you.
That was actually for the HVAC. They're also working on HVAC, but
Oh,
that's
that's right,
not,
upstairs.
that's not part of this 273 that you see here.
Any other discussion? All in favor of approval? Aye?
Aye.
Okay. Moving into personnel considerations, 7.1 through 7.20. Is there a motion for one or all?
Emotional.
Ed, motion for 7.1 through 7.20. Jenny, second. Any discussion? Kristen?
I have a question about 7.9 in regards to the geometry. What is that for? Is that to coverage for somebody while they're out? They're gonna have 3 different teachers? We're struggling in geometry big time with 10th grade. My son's one of them, and he's in the class. So how is that gonna work?
Those are teachers that are picking up an extra .2 during their,
So they'll just, it will be a period per?
yep. So the schedule for the students will remain the same. We did have a posting open.
I know.
It was unfilled.
I'm really concerned. I mean, for mine, for other students that I've heard that are really struggling with that class, and now the absent, that's gonna midterms are next week, and
I share your concern.
it's bad. I mean, not bad, just for my son, and I'm nervous to have, whoever he gets, but then maybe that person who's gonna be assigned 10th period? How does that work? Somebody will be there?
The students would go to these teachers'
To
classrooms.
but what happens if one of these teachers has to be at the middle school or wherever else?
Those teachers they had free planning periods during the times that those classes were being taught.
Okay,
So the kids' schedules won't change.
but I mean like 10th period.
Oh, 10th period.
And who's going to be
No,
available to help?
they're not. They're not all high school teachers unless something changed.
Okay.
that I know of.
Because I
So-
think there was a lot of students.
I don't have
in
my
it. There's a
staff
lot of
list in
students
front
this
of me.
I
so
know,
not-
I'm sorry, I'm
That's
just
okay.
asking because of the concern,
Yeah.
there's concern out there, general concern, and I've brought it up a few times. So, just want to make sure, and I was just curious.
Just so I'm clear, so there's a vacancy right now for geometry teacher, and these .2s are to fill
Yeah,
the void?
well, that, she's.
A teacher took a leave.
She's going to be
Going
leaving.
out in February
Okay.
for the rest of the year.
So these .2 arrangements are to cover that absence?
Class, yeah.
Each class.
So like whatever period you could have one of those teachers, your child.
Is that teacher expected back by September?
That is not determined yet. They have 90 days prior
I think
to them
so.
returning that they have to let us know. 3 months?
Correct.
Yes.
I just feel like one solid teacher would be great for that class to.
It would be, yes, 10th period.
Sorry, just to go back to this, so what is the solution if they have a middle school teacher? Is there a idea or are these 3 teachers, one of them is from the middle school?
Yeah, okay, I don't know all the staff where they are, so I look at my lists that are on my desk.
Okay,
All I know is they are all certified math teachers, so some of them may be in the middle school. I made a note here to follow up with the CCS and the principal to see what we might be able to do to make sure that those kids have support during 10th
because
period.
if this is an area where students are already struggling, not being able to access that teacher after school seems highly concerning for their success in the class. But hopefully we can get some answers from the CCSs and principal.
Okay. That's
We'll
all I
be
had.
sure that a letter goes home to families to explain just that.
Yeah, that
So
would.
this middle school teacher will come from the middle school to here in their free period? With
The only
timing
person
of
I know
right?
that used to be a middle school teacher, I don't know if they're still in middle school, so I
Okay,
can't.
okay.
I don't
confirm
think that any of them are, because we
Okay.
asked the question
Did they?
when they initially selected them. I think they're all in high school right now,
You know?
but regardless,
None of them?
we'll send a letter with a plan.
They're all high school.
Okay,
Thank you.
perfect.
I was
Okay.
gonna say, I'll check
Perfect.
Synergy right now.
I mean, I was waiting for you to give that, yeah.
Thank you. That-
Oh, thank you.
He wanted to see how long we would struggle with it first.
Why not?
Oh,
Why not?
sorry.
Won't be the first.
Oh, I
She was
see.
yelling at me, it was on the chart.
I see.
Oh, right here. Building height, well, yeah. But still, it's still a concern that there's 3 different people that have to teach these classes.
I agree. Anything else on the personnel considerations?
Just we have retirements.
Couple retirements there.
Yep. Thank you to the retirees.
Joyce Moore and Peter Ballantyne.
Yes, congratulations and thank you. All right, all in favor of approval? Aye? Okay, moving into special reports, I have nothing, so we'll go to Dr. Bailey.
I think somehow, between last time and now, we did do our reveal around the art contest. And our congratulations to Madeline Babcock, very skilled 7th grade student who designed that. And we had some nice media coverage on Channel 10 and in the Ravena-News-Herald around that. We'll be meeting with graphic designers from BOCES next week so that they can talk us through what the process would look like. And as soon as we have a sense of timeline from them, we'll reconvene our rebranding committee so that they can help us figure out some of the more nuanced stuff around transition. The idea would be that by fall of 2024, we are the Ravens, but there's a lot of steps to that. As far as uniforms, we know we're okay with. If we get the graphic design done early enough, there's a potential that any of the uniforms for next season could be purchased with the design on it. As you recall, in the interim, we've just been purchasing RCS rather than anything else on it right now. But we have other items in the district that we want to consider, how and when we want to change them. We also want to talk about the memorializing the history of the district, the consolidation of Ravena-Coeymans-Selkirk, the development of Indians as our mascot, and what we do with some of the nicer artifacts, like the piece of granite that Bray's class purchased for the school district. We want to find a place to memorialize that and tell the story, because it's relevant. Even though it's changing, it's still relevant. So the rebranding committee will help us with that. Yeah, Kristen.
Will there be multiple, or how do I say it? Like, a raven's a raven, but for us, we had an Indian and we had a spear. Are we just how, is it just one, this is it, this is our logo, this is how we're doing it? Or are you gonna have like the words Raven as on the floor of our basketball court? Like, how's that?
Michelle and I, our communications person and I were talking about that today, because we had a preliminary call with them, and I couldn't be on that call, and I said, ask them, is it just the side, is it from the front, is it the whole body, is it the word Ravens, is it RCS, what are the potentialities? And I think what we expect of them is for them to do, when we do a branding guide, the current one, all that it has is the spear in various orientations and the Indian head, Native American head, and the word Indians and RCS. That's the sum total of our branding. I think that this design has the potential to be more, because we will have graphics on helmets and on clothing and on pants and on the floor and in the pool and all that. So they're going to help us answer that question. We don't want 20 things, but I think there's the potential to be more than just side and that's all that you get. I mean, and if you look at some of the professional teams, they have great examples of that. You know, different orientations where you see it, the animal coming at you or from the side with different letters or the word underneath it. So we're going to ask them to help us with that. I expect there'll be more than one, but not 20.
Yeah, and are we going to think about when it comes to athletic fields, the bottom of the pool? I mean, I would hope that nobody's gonna fight us on a bird, but you never know. Will we, just on the bottom of the pool, maybe just put RCS instead of putting Ravens, in case something ever came up again?
I kept saying
It's a
tarp
lot
and
of
a
money
couple
we're gonna be
sandbags and we'd be done. But
We're gonna be spending a lot of money on a lot of things. So just a thought, I mean, on this,
we did.
maybe on the basketball court, we don't put a Raven in.
Bill Schramm, you know, we have, when they put the liner in the pool, we have excess liner. They use it for repairs. Bill, as a suggestion, just said, we cut the appropriate size piece and they just put it in.
Put it in.
Which is a solution, because there are lots of other places in the room for us to put whatever it is we want to put.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of stuff that the rebranding committee will be talking
Okay,
about.
okay.
But you pose a really good question. What do we want to put in permanency
Yeah.
that we can't get out?
Yeah,
We know we have to sand the wood floor every 8 to 10 years, but
now we have to.
if we don't have to empty the pool, we don't want to empty the pool.
Well, I don't really, the whole point was to change, there's no really anticipation of changing again, so.
Heavens no.
You never know, but we never thought we'd ever not be an Indian.
Yeah, but I think you just gotta go with what we have now, right?
Yeah, we will talk about it
Yeah,
as a committee.
I'm not saying not change it, but I'm just saying instead of putting a Ravens in the pool, just put RCS. Like, why do we need a Raven in there? You could put it on the wall or put it on the,
Right.
something easier to fix.
It wasn't,
Considering the biggest ticket items, like the bottom of the pool, which arguably is probably the hardest one to
drain
replace.
the
You
pool.
have to drain the entire pool, you have to shut everything down. I mean,
right.
I think it's a good point, you know, on at least some of the bigger ticket items, it might be worth us debating, you know.
What we put,
Right,
yeah.
yeah, because to your point, we have no idea of what will change next week,
You
let
never
alone
know.
in 5 years.
Somebody could get mad
You know,
about a
and,
Raven.
it's the hardest one to see too,
I
frankly.
know.
It's
right, is
Yes.
it worth it even, you know, like under the water there, is it worth it? to put
goggles
them
on,
there?
and you're in the water, you can see it.
It's a real, you know, it's a diving challenge. It's a new part of the swim team.
Just a thought, just putting it out there.
Nothing. Even though they mandated us to change this, they're not giving us anything back.
Their argument is they mandated us to change it in 2001, and we failed to do so. And we had lots of opportunity in those 23 years. So the commissioner at the time gave a directive then. Just no lawsuits followed it. So they're not being sympathetic in that way. You know, I think that we have a lot of the costs balanced out with regular maintenance. There's a list of all the things that we are doing, along with whether or not it's incurring additional cost. And we already decided that any of those additional costs, we would take it from money that Lafarge gives us for beautification. It seems like a sensible thing.
Okay. Okay. How many other school districts in 2001 changed their
were
Native
some.
American?
That's a good question. There were some, there have been many over the last 24 years.
I was just at Fonda Fultonville and they had to change theirs. They said that it's been like 2 years that they've been in the works of.
Yeah, I think the past 5 years, because there has been more action on it. There, I mean, most districts, if not all districts who have Indians as their mascot still, in the past 5 years have made movements to change it. I don't think very many did it in 2001, although I do remember the conversation being had when I was in high school around that time. So I think the conversation was happening back in 2001, but I don't think anyone was taking any action to actually change it then.
Actually, Mike, I'd take it back. It is, court cases is one thing, but they clearly attached the loss of state aid to failing to take action. That did not happen in 2001. It was more of a, that's a bad thing to do, you shouldn't do it. This time, it's a bad thing to do, you shouldn't do it, and it will cost you dearly if you fail to do what we're saying to do. There were 70 schools left that had to go through this process out of 700. 10%.
That's all?
10% of the schools in New York still had to go through the change in these past 2 years.
What we're doing right now.
Correct. And some of them,
So 90% did it already?
or never had, I'm saying of all.
Oh,
the
well,
schools.
they
Yeah.
maybe not all had Native American, yeah.
I didn't, to be honest, I didn't think that we were remarkably ahead of the curve, but we are surrounded by other schools that are, they've not, some of them haven't gone out to their community or had a discussion about what they're going to do yet. They have until 2025, but that's not a lot of time.
No.
You know, we've been at it for 12 to 14 months now
Yeah.
to get this far. So I'm grateful how far we've come. Oh, sorry, it's still my turn. Sorry about that. I took another swing at the hearings and petitions. I know this is old business, but, so what you see on the front of this document is exactly what we have right now. So I didn't make any changes to that. What Mike, Ed, and I had a quick discussion about a couple weeks ago is Bethlehem, someone brought to our attention. Who brought Bethlehem to our attention? Anyone want to take credit?
What'd you say?
Who brought Bethlehem's hearing and petitions to our attention?
It wasn't me.
All right, somebody did.
Maybe one of them. Did you guys bring Bethlehem?
It's okay.
Oh, no, it's me. On the,
There you go. So the back of it represents what Bethlehem has on their website around hearings and petitions. They call it something else. They call it community contributions on board topics or something like that. But at any rate, the idea is that we wanted to encourage people to participate and to give voice. We wanted to be a little more specific about the topics that they could discuss, and we wanted to ensure that if you look down at the last two bullets, it says speakers are expected to treat each other with respect, confining their remarks to school district issues, and they shouldn't make personal statements about individuals or engage in any commentary that's slanderous or abusive, and the board president may rule the speaker out of order if he makes such statements. We talked about it in our policy meeting last week, and decided to try and integrate this a little bit. There's one more paragraph that isn't on this, that when we put this on our website, we would add that last paragraph, which basically talks about, we encourage people to participate in this process. It's just a statement of belief, but it didn't seem like it was necessary on this piece of paper. But I did share the hyperlink to that in my news and notes last week. So anybody have any thoughts around that? Are we headed in the right direction?
the only question I had was, at the last meeting, everything in red was added, correct?
Yep, I took it all back out.
But on the current petition, it's not all out. No personally identified information may be discussed is on our current petition.
Right? It's on this one too?
Yeah, but that was under the red, right?
No, it's on this is the one I just handed out tonight? Oh, I'm sorry, you got a lot of papers there.
So, no, I guess, so the, correct, the one you handed out tonight has no personally identified information, but that was in red last time, as it had been added, correct?
I apologize, it might have been that.
It was there, okay.
Yeah, it was.
So that was currently there.
Yep, sorry.
Okay, that's what was my confusion on that.
Yep.
So my only question on that, and so I did find on the Bethlehem website, they had actually a nice printout, what's on the back of, but as I read through it and still looked at it, I just had some of the wording, I think we still may tweak. Like, no person addressing the board should initiate charges or complaints about a board member or an employee. The only question I have with that is that would be limiting someone from coming here and speaking out constructively, maybe, if they had a complaint. Is there a way we could reword that verbiage? And if they did have an issue with a district employee, then they should direct that to the superintendent. But if they had an issue with a board member, they should direct that to the board itself, correct?
Well, with hearings and petitions is not intended to give criticism about individual people. So I would say if they came up and said, you,
Right.
board member, I tried to stop you in the store and you refused to talk to me, and I don't know what they would.
Well, right, so they could say a board member, so as long as they're not calling somebody out individually. But so, if somebody though had an issue with an employee or something like that, it should be directed to the superintendent. If someone has an issue with a board member, the request should be directed to the board, correct?
I would direct it to the board president, but I wouldn't do it at the podium, that's not.
No, you're right, that's what I mean. I mean, we could reword the word, right, the word right now, the verbiage right now is everything directed, administrative, board-wise to you. So we would just, anything directed to the board would be directed to the board president? See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or could you just add or board president after the word superintendent? Would that satisfy?
No, because one is, so if it is staff-related, it would be directed to the superintendent. If it's board-related, it would be directed to the board.
Depends on the staff, though. Sometimes it goes to the principal, too.
I mean, here's a
We're getting too
question on the
deep.
process, the larger process.
Yeah, I think just.
Should charges or complaints about staff members or students go direct to the superintendent?
No,
Is that our current process?
no.
Well,
It should be building
so
principal
the
first.
precursor paragraph says the process includes who to contact when.
Right.
So that differs people, so they're not gonna, hearings of petitions, they would see the who to contact when, and that should send them off an on-ramp, an off-ramp, so they're going in the right direction rather than just, for some reason, skipping over that first paragraph and coming right to the board. Let me read the thing for you, sorry.
So if we have that preceding paragraph, do we really need this down below? Is it just more confusing? Because we're directing that who to contact when first.
From time to time, individuals may wish to address comments or concerns directly to the Board of Education. In most instances, issues involving students, parents, faculty, or staff can be resolved without having to appear before the board. To ensure timely resolution of your concerns and/or questions, the district has a helpful reference guide of who to contact when in its hyperlinked. That's the precursor to this language in their website. And it would be on our website. If someone's standing here, I thought that they'd already, maybe not, gone through a process.
I just don't think you want to encourage
Right.
complaints and charges to go direct to the superintendent.
I agree.
I would say that is a better paragraph than this is. And that would be more appropriate to put in this space than the current language.
Say it again, sorry.
I would say that that is better language and redirecting them to the who to contact when than this paragraph.
Gotcha.
I would agree. I think that makes more sense, and it keeps us from needing to kind of like lay it all out, like individually to say, if you need to talk about this, you need to go to this person, if you need to, like, we have a whole guide on that already, so.
Cross out,
That
take out
sentence.
that whole,
Take
take
off
out that
that whole
whole paragraph.
Paragraph.
Yep.
All right, I'll do that, and we got policy again, not next week, The
No,
week
the
after.
Week after?
We'll take a swing at it again, and we'll look at it at the policy meeting and come back. All right, thank you. Okay,
And perhaps, I'm sorry, just as a thought, maybe we can keep sort of a printout of the who to contact sheet available along with this, so just sort of, where we keep, I know they at least used to be up there, I assume they still are, the hearings and
right.
petitions, right next to it, we could just keep, a couple of the who to contact sheets so that it's kind of readily available.
that's easy.
Could we,
It's
could
printed
we,
in our calendar, we can
just
print it out.
to clarify that with the petitions, because some people, there's a process, and some people just may come here and just take this as the first step. The last process in that who to contact and when sheet says that at the very end, if you've gone through the whole process and can't be resolved, then the Board of Education is the last step. But what is the process for them to initiate that at that point? Maybe we could add that to the who to contact and when, or somehow let them know that. Because if they've gone through the process, all it says is the Board of Education would become involved then. But how do they come involved? What do? Do they come to the meeting? Do they submit an email? Maybe we could explain that out to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can update that on the website right away, and then as we prepare the calendar for next year, we do whatever updates those were. Well, I'll tell you what, when we talk about it in 2 weeks,
Okay.
we'll look at that too, and then see if we can craft the language. Michelle can help me craft the language around that.
Sounds good.
Still my turn, isn't it? Sorry. Last thing is the sub-rate. Pete had asked about what our standing is in current sub-rate. Please disregard where it says teaching assistants under Ravena. We do not use their service for teaching assistants, plus that's below minimum wage, so ignore that. But, say it again?
We don't use this TA, is that what you said?
We don't use this sub-service for TAs.
Okay.
A couple things at play. One is, the next nearest district going into the capital region is Bethlehem, and they have a $150 barricade between us and all the other schools. Theirs is the highest on this schedule. We're almost the highest. We're right at the top. We are more than most districts, except for Bethlehem, it's 150. And it is important to note, I think I mentioned at our last meeting, that we intend to do something different with our sub-service going into next year that will secure our own subs rather than taking them from a pool from BOCES. So in other words, we can specifically call someone and say, hey, would you like to work for RCS? Great. We're going to communicate directly with you and call you in when we need you. Is different. I think Jesse and other business managers, if Seth has told the story of someone coming in, hey, I want a sub, and then sending them up to BOCES. And BOCES, of course, covers, they don't do all 24 schools. They do this many schools. This is all BOCES. That as soon as they go on the BOCES list, they're eligible to sub everywhere else. So we don't want to do that anymore. We want to, and we have some very faithful 3 to 5 people who are here all the time. We want to add to that, so we can advertise the jobs ourselves. We can go on Indeed or on OLAS or whatever platforms and try and get some retired folks or qualified folks to just choose us and use them. We think that our price point is pretty good. And having our own subs will be helpful. The only thing that we wanted to consider, and it's not on here because it's on our, we have a separate pay sheet that we do each July 1st. On that sheet, it states, because this is just BOCES pay, it states on that sheet that we pay $210 for retired RCS teachers. I think that we probably would be served by finding a different rate for retired teachers from anywhere and add that to our dossier here when we're trying to get people to come work. So that's the newest, our newest improvements, what we expect to do starting in September. And the only other benefit is it brings it into the sub module is in a program that the staff are already using for other things. So hopefully it will be easier to just go one place and then do everything that they need to do. Yeah.
As a former sub, if we are taking it over on
our own, is there a possibility of doing a further staggered schedule? So somebody like me who used to work in the district and then say want to come back but not full-time, is there not just retired teachers but experienced master level teachers? Is there a possibility of building that also into that new? And I'll tell you, I love that idea because as a sub, I only ever wanted to work at RCS, but then I would have to go through the whole rigmarole of the BOCES process, and it was a lot, and I think that would be a fantastic change.
You know what some schools do, Mel, is they have like I know my parents subbed after they retired, and you worked 30 days in the district, and your salary went up a little bit. And you worked 30 more days in various jobs, and your salary went up a little bit.
Yeah.
That was a good tool and incentive, because then they'll be more likely to come to you than go into another school. So
Right.
we'll definitely look at that.
Okay.
Be incentivized to people to do more days.
Right.
Which would be a win.
That achievements rate is accurate? The top one? I'm sorry, but that's a special, like, that's just a pre-K? Because that's a fabulously higher rate than all the others, and that's not even within a school district. It's its own private
I don't
company.
even know what that is, a private company.
It's a private company. They provide special education services too. I'd be shocked if they could pay teachers $190 a
Sure
day.
they're passing it right along to their clients.
It's fascinating.
He's not here, but I know last week he was talking about, which isn't on here, retired rate for non-RCS teachers, which you just talked about, Brian, but he did bring up a point. We are competitive, but when you look at Bethlehem, right over there, and like he said, do you want to be competitive, or do you want to raise the rates to attract the best teachers and make sure that we always have subs? Because like Pete said, you know, if it was up to him, he's going to travel where the money is and probably stay with that district. So we're competitive, but would it be advantageous to us to be a little bit more than competitive, like sort of the way Bethlehem is, where when teachers are looking at RCS or Bethlehem, they can make $150 a day, that's to $120. That could be a deciding factor when they could get other subs that maybe we're not getting. So, you know, we're competitive, but maybe do we want to just remain competitive? Or do we want to maybe go a little bit out on the edge, so a little bit more, and try to get the better teachers to come here?
We'll consider that as we do the schedule. I know what you're saying. Like, I wasn't joking, they provided a $150 fence.
Well, I saw that. and that-
Everyone north of us,
Right.
$150, then us.
Curiosity, do we know what, just because they're the two closest districts and the other one's not on here, do we know what Cooksaki?
I was just gonna say that, we don't know.
Okay.
It's, because they're in a different BOCES, they're in Equestria BOCES.
I gotcha.
But
Okay. I just noticed they weren't on here and they're like,
as
our,
we,
you know,
as we
neighbor.
do what Ed's suggesting, that's relevant. It's very relevant. to
Yeah,
say,
for
are-
sure. Because I know that, you know, I mean, for permanent teachers that we compete with Cooksaki's salaries. So I wonder what their substitute rates are and if they are also, you know, kind of pulling people from
Yep.
up here that we could otherwise maybe use.
Agreed. So just like people who are in Bethlehem or north would go to Bethlehem, if Cooksaki's doing it south of us, people who are south or in Cooksaki are gonna go there instead.
Right, yeah.
We'll find all that out before we do that. Thank you for the suggestions.
While you're looking at that, if it's possible, I'd be interested also in Castleton, because they're also very close to us. I mean, places, I actually was shocked, but food places in Castleton will deliver to my house, which tells me that they're not that far away. So, you know, it might also be worthwhile to see that. It's certainly close enough that people would commute there if it was worthwhile.
Yeah. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. I am done, thank you.
Before we move on, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit.
Sure.
We have a lot of relatively new members on the board, and I'd like you to educate us and anybody else who may be watching or watching at a later date
Snow days?
on what the process is for snow day decisions. What's considered, who's consulted, and all of the factors that go into your decision-making process, so we all understand.
I made a video about this. Can I just,
Transportation yesterday because I had a hard time getting my minivan with no children in it home from work. I was amazed that my child showed up home on time. Kudos to your staff. I am impressed with their driving skills yesterday because really there were no lines on the road by the time I came home yesterday. So I am eternally grateful that you guys got everybody home very safely in difficult weather yesterday. And I'm sorry for the interruption, but you may carry on with the
It's a great
snow day
interruption.
conversation.
You also made a really great video about this that I once
I was
watched.
just about to say, I made a video about this. Can I just show the video at the next board meeting? So when we know there's inclement weather, we have a emergency closure meeting in the fall every year, which has the district office team, transportation, food service, and maintenance, operations and maintenance. And what we do is we have a document that we work from that solidifies the order of operations every time a weather event occurs. So one or all of us lets the group know when we know there's inclement weather coming, which tells us that we need to be looking at there's 3 primary sites that I look at, which is NOAA, the NOAA website, Massanet, which is SUNY Albany, and then I use one of the local news stations that has very good radar. I won't say which one. So we start at usually 3:45 in the morning looking at the weather patterns and what's predicted. And around 4:30, our transportation director, our director of O&M, sometimes the dispatchers, and when there's an assistant director, they're on the road. They're driving the 4 corners of the district to see what the conditions are. We're talking between 4 and 5 o'clock. We also make phone calls to the highway supervisors in New Baltimore, Coeymans, and sometimes Bethlehem to get a sense of what they're, inevitably, one of the 3 says, oh, one of our trucks are down. It's the first snowstorm, and if the truck fell over and broke or something, almost always. But they say, we've got all our crews out, we have a broken truck, we have whatever, we haven't gotten to this area yet. And then we make a decision of whether or not we should delay or we should close. We usually make that decision by 4:45. And then the communication's out to families by 5. And then if we delay, we usually tell people that by 6:30, we'll have the next round of information. The other piece of information that we use is the Capital Region BOCES superintendents have a shared social media, we use a text account that we can text each other, and we talk through what the conditions are in our own districts and whether we are delaying or we're closing. The reason for that is our staff live in other school districts. Their staff live in our school district. We have students who go to their school district. We have students who go to Cap Region BOCES. It's all intertwined. So we are, at the same time as all this is going on in district, we have all these other things going on through with the other superintendents. If South Colony closes, that means that BOCES is closed because they're located in South Colony. So that means that we would have 70 kids who wouldn't have any place to go to school that day. So if we were open, which sometimes we are, they would come here and they would either stay the remainder of the day when they're supposed to be at Career and Tech, or they would, their parents would come pick them up or they'd drive home. So we've made a decision to stay open or close. Yesterday was an awesome, first of all, 2 inches was predicted for Ravena and the surrounding area. And it started just about when the buses were leaving the garage to go out on the road. And obviously parents were about to bring their children in, and the trucks all began their clearing process at the exact same time. When the storms begin at 2, 3, or 4, the trucks are out all night doing the work they need to do. Yesterday, the trucks came out the same time our buses came out, the same time that parents came out. We very rarely have a storm that starts at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the morning. It almost always starts at 3, 2, 3, 4, or 5. So you know, there were some schools south of us that were closed before the first flake had fallen, and there are some schools that stayed open all day and they got snowed on all day. So we stay in communication the whole time, and we try and, to the best of our ability, determine whether or not it is going to be safe to stay open. One myth that's important to dispel is that we don't get money because kids came to school yesterday, because kids only come to school 180 days. We have 5 snow days built in. If the kids weren't here yesterday, we would have gotten money for them coming to school some other day. That's why at the end of the school year, kids stop coming once they've hit 180 days. Parents always ask, there's 3 days of school left on the calendar. Why isn't my child coming to school? Because we got to 180 days. And we were paid state aid for 180 days. So we didn't get any extra money or any prizes for staying open yesterday. Yesterday was a hard day. The Transportation Department was brilliant in the work that they did. Some of the schools that we transport to were closed, would help lighten the stress on the department so they could diversify a little bit and help in district. But we live in the Northeast, and it snows, and yesterday it snowed at the 2 most inopportune times. The window of time when we were coming in and the window of time we were supposed to be going home. And that's not what the model said. The model said 2 inches of light snow throughout 14 hours. That isn't how it played out.
So do we get a certain allotment of snow days per
5.
year? We get 5.
We built in 5.
We build in 5. So if we're closed up to 5 full days, then there's no schedule adjustments required. If we're closed less than 5 full days, then there's less days at the end of the year. If we're closed more than 5 full days, then we have to make up a day somewhere. Okay.
Yeah, and I think it's usually it's April break, usually starting from the last day of April break. So if we had 6 days, the Friday of April break would be open.
And what are the consequences of a late start or an early dismissal?
None.
Okay.
Other than lost instructional time. We do have a requirement to hit 900 hours at the elementary school, 990 hours at the middle school and high school, but we would have to start late quite a few times or leave early quite a few times to have that happen. The other thing that is important to note, there were a few families who reached out to me yesterday, displeased and, were concerned about safety on the roads and safety of the buses and themselves driving, is that these are very hard decisions for a lot of reasons. We have the safety concerns and wanting to make sure that we're being preemptive and making the right decision so that everyone is safe, because sometimes we just don't know the answer. So we've had days where we've closed school and there hasn't been any snow, right? The storm of the century is coming and it just goes in a different direction. That we also have a lot of families in our district that work hourly jobs. They don't have time where they can just say, I'm going to stay home today. All of those families would have had to make arrangements and potentially lose money that's necessary for their families because they would have had to stay home. The decision is never easy. Obviously, the decision is never easy. And we're right most of the time, which is a blessing. But there's not an easy answer. None of these schools closed. None of them were delayed. Some of them canceled after-school activities. But every single one of us is different too. They don't have the hills that we have, the exact hills that we have. Okay?
That was a concern I have. I just wanted to bring up a little bit, there are people that, like you said, don't live in our district. There are people that do live in our district. There are people that live in our district that live up on the hills. I guess it's my question about this was when do you make that decision if you're going to bring them home early? Because if they're coming home early, it snowed all day. Where I lived, it snowed all day. We have a lot of snow. And again, shout out to the bus garages, all the buses, they did fabulous. my concern, I don't know if I want to bring up now or when we have the stop app, was my bus didn't come. It was Craig in a Tahoe with my child and 3 other children, and it caught me off guard. I was waiting, I'm like, where's my bus? I hope she's okay, where's the bus, where's the bus? And then poor Craig comes up, which was great, he got home safe, but maybe notify me, like, hey, just so you know, your child won't be on a bus today, it's going to be on a Tahoe with 3 other children, with poor Craig that had to go out there and do it, because those buses can't make those hills sometimes, and it was bad. I mean, where I live was bad. I'm pretty sure the other few up the hill were not good and easy, and I felt horrible
I live on
for
a flat
these
road.
other bus drivers that had to do that. So I guess, making that decision, I feel like it snowed all day. We could have maybe,
That wasn't what was predicted. So
yeah,
how do we?
my prediction I saw was 4 to 6 inches by what's his name?
Need to
And
follow
he's-
Weatherman G.
Weatherman G is on it all the time. And he was right. And it started when he said it was gonna start, and it ended about when he said it was gonna end. I mean, I get it. We live in the Northeast, like you said, but we have a hilly area, and we have teachers that need to get home safe. And some of the buses, per your email, they didn't get back till 6 o'clock at night. That's why I feel horrible. That's, to me, we should have maybe made a decision a little bit.
And I don't
Earlier.
want to second guess decisions.
No,
They're extremely difficult decisions. I don't envy you for having to make the decision. I want to understand the process.
yeah.
I think everybody needs to understand the process. I don't think there's a common understanding of what the process is, that there is a formal process. And the close calls, right? And I'm sure this is your perspective as well. You can never go wrong by being too safe, right? If it's that close call and you have to err on one side or the other, and there's potential financial consequences, there's childcare arrangements that need to be made. But at the end of the day, there's safety, right? There's kids on buses, there's new drivers in the high school, there's staff from all over. Our staff come from a very wide geographic area. So if it's a close call, I mean, my viewpoint would be err on the side of safety.
Yeah. And then,
And this is not second guessing any decision that's been made. This is just process.
And what was
That is always the process that I follow.
so you explained the morning process and the time frame. In the event that you were going to make the call to send kids home early, what time frame does that look like? Because obviously, parents have to be, is it usually by 11 o'clock you make a decision, 10? Because, I'm just trying to understand the process and the timeframes for sending them home early. That way parents have an idea, a timeframe to know when to expect that they may get a call, because then that's a whole nother set of arrangements they have to make. You get out of work early and everything. So you explained the morning process timeframes. Is there a timeframe process that you follow and to let kids go home early?
A minimum of an hour.
yeah, I was gonna say, I think it's
A
an
minimum
hour,
of
right?
an hour.
A minimum of an hour?
Minimum of an hour, because we want the middle school families, if they want to figure childcare out, that they can try and do so.
Okay.
And that in turn gives the elementary parents 2 hours essentially to figure it out.
Is that the same when you cancel after-school programs? So we stayed in all day yesterday, but then when do you make that decision if you're gonna cancel sporting events? Is that within I'm just curious because, again, I was the one of them being like, do I have to drive and pick up my kid at 2:15? Because he had practice. And then I finally got the notification. So that was just another question I had is
What was your question, Kristen?
when do you make the decision not to hold 10th period or any activities after school?
Anytime. I mean, that is,
But do you have, like me, I saw my text at 1:30.
yeah, we made it at 1:15.
So, yeah, but some certain, if I didn't have that one app, I wouldn't have got it till later. But anyways, so I was sitting there like, I don't want to drive, but do I have to go get my kid at 2:15 or is he going to have basketball till 4:15 and then I would make arrangements, So I was just curious, when do you make that decision that you're canceling all after-school activities?
It could be right at 2:45. There's no guarantee of when that is. It's a different situation, but we would ordinarily know before that, long before that. It wouldn't be like right at 2:45, but I mean, it is a different, it's a,
It's just, you have to factor in, and unfortunately, you have to factor in elementary students, middle school students, and then you have, like you said, you have drivers that are in the high school, kids that are new to driving, and it's like, okay, well, I gotta drive home in this. I just was curious for after-school programs, like, when would they know? Like, oh, okay, I don't have to sit at school anymore, I can go. If they don't have, because some people come back to school to go to the after-school programs, seniors especially, that might have a class, they're done at 11, they go home and they come back for sports. So I just was curious of when we make that. Oh, yeah, when I was a senior, I left at 11 o'clock. Didn't have to come back till my practice at,
My kid was home by 1 yesterday and would have had to come back.
we made the call more than an hour before the end of school yesterday.
yeah, I'm just asking why do
And we
I?
would always try and do that, and there was no advantage to trying to leave early yesterday. What we canceled after school because we wanted everyone we didn't want anyone on the road in the dark. We wanted to get students home while the sun was still up to the greatest extent. That's why we canceled all the after-school stuff,
Which is great, I'm glad we did, because,
including students, because you're right, they're driving and they're novices and they don't know what they're doing necessarily. Yeah.
okay.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna ask one last question about this. If for some reason families did not receive the notification, what would the policy be for them? Like, I know there were a few families that didn't receive the text message. How do they get on that, on the text chain or whatever? I don't know what it's called. Like, I got a text message on my phone and then some parents didn't. What do they need to fill out to make sure they're on it?
Let me see.
Like, do they need to make sure their
We have
information's
an
in
open position,
Synergy
so
or?
in my mind, I'm thinking of where to assign that task. We have a vacant position right now. The easiest way, let me calculate a better answer. There is a who to contact when sheet.
Okay.
It would have been a registrar, but right now we have two people subbing on that, subbing in that position right now. We did send it out, text message, push notification, email, Facebook, website, and phone call. So our hope was that we could capture them,
Right,
but if people
but
want to
maybe
be-
their information wasn't in the system or something, the parent that I'm referring to, because they said they didn't receive a phone call or a text message. I'm not sure about an email. I just didn't know where they would go to make sure that they were on that, and maybe they weren't on it, and this was the way they discovered.
Sure. I'll let you know.
Okay,
It would have been our registrar, but she finished work last Friday, so
okay.
it's harder. That's a perpetual problem, Jenny. There's always some people. who
Yeah,
aren't
and
captured
I
on
didn't
that.
know where they're supposed to go. Like, I know I get the messages. I honestly don't know how or when I signed up. I just know I get them. So
Magic.
I wouldn't know where to tell someone to go to
You
make sure they
registered a
get it.
child 14 years ago, and the number's still in there. I would also encourage everyone to download the app. Although it doesn't capture necessarily every message, every type of message, it would unquestionably capture any emergency messages like that.
Okay.
And they can turn the notifications on and off for the app. We use it pretty conservatively. I mean, we've got a little, like, outline of how it's supposed to be used, so we're not dumping garbage into people's text messages or on the app, so that doesn't discourage them from leaving it on, turned on.
What's the app called?
It's,
Is it those, it hasn't changed from before?
it's not.
Appology or something like?
This is the RCS Connects app, right?
Yes,
You're
thank
talking
Okay.
you, RCS Connects. We'll send a new push out about that, so we can help with that as well.
Okay.
Going over to the new student data management system affected some of that as well. I know Carol sent out a communication saying that only primary numbers, the first number in the system, was the one that was uploaded at this time. But she was, like when we first went over to it. But she spent hundreds of hours trying to get everyone else in there. So we'll find out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jean?
My turn. Just a couple of updates. One is around the Code of Conduct Committee. So as many of you know, We met last week. We had 20 participants. All levels were represented. We started by talking about identifying our range of expectations, kind of what we hope to learn, hope to get out of this work. You know, for example, how consistently are we applying consequences and restorative practices? But there was a long list. We took a little bit of time to review the format and some of the content of the code of conduct, the current code of conduct. And then we spent some time talking about the data sets that we'd like to see in order to do a deep dive into it. So our next meetings are January 23rd and January 31st, where we really are going to take a close read at some data, what it says, what we think it means, and then in turn using that, what we think it means to identify some needs or issues so that we can bring those back to buildings to work with BLTs and faculties around some solutions for them. We also want to hopefully have a recommendation for or determining the level of revision that might be needed for the code of conduct, content, layout, or otherwise. And I do think after having that meeting, one of the things I was thinking about was also reminding the group, or at least getting them up to speed, about some of the other safety and climate things that are happening at the same time that might inform some of the work that they identify. So for example, the safety audit. I don't know if everyone knows about those kind of things, so I want to make sure that that committee knows about those parts as well. So looking forward to that. The next item was, last week, I had an opportunity, along with two of our elementary CCSs, Sarah Pulcher and Kelly Doggett, to go to a statewide event, but it was statewide, but we were all located in our BOCES around a literacy series. So it was based on the work that many of you, if you're paying attention to public education, around the science of reading and really helping schools think through what it is and also helping folks understand what it is not, which is commonly misunderstood. So it really helped me wrap my head around what, and their message over and over again was this work around literacy and literacies and broadening our understanding of what that is and how it impacts kids across schools, and then thinking about, for a school's perspective, how do we have and how do we attend to that tier 1 literacy learning for all? So, and I know that this board has talked about it with our leadership team in the past around core instruction, tier 1 instruction, and they kept really driving home the point of how that really all gets wrapped up in literacies. So some of the highlights that stood out to me was just how interactive it was. So we had some state ed representatives and some experts in the field that helped produce the series of literacy briefs, and they introduced each one. There's 7. And that happened partly, and it was interactive. We were able to ask questions, but there were huge groups at BOCES across the state that were all doing the same work. So that sort of interaction with the folks on the screen and then time to interact with folks in the room was really powerful. Being able to sit at a table and talk with folks from Voorheesville and from Burn Hills, Ballston Lake, they were at my table. So that it was and helping school districts start to think through planning on how we can support each other and what we need. The other thing that was really important around science of reading and literacies is really helping or focusing on making sure that people understand what that is and building a shared understanding. And we say this all the time in public education, and really understanding that this work is not in a silo. It is connected to culturally responsive teaching and a sustaining framework. It's related to the social and emotional framework. So really trying to see how it's integrated. And they did a really nice job with that. And then the third thing is we did, get our report from the State Education Department from their UPK visit and feedback on our quality assurance protocol. So submitting our documentation to say what we've been doing. I had mentioned briefly that we got a great report back informally from Christina Ryan, our state ed rep. She identified some of the promising practices, things she saw happening in the classrooms, really focused on the center work that's happening at the schools, students having choice, being able to move independently, really building that sense of independence and agency. And also that teachers manage those centers so that when kids were at independent centers, they truly were independent so that the teachers could focus on small group instruction with other groups while those kids were around the classroom. The other thing that they highlighted, which I thought was important because I think it's pretty impressive too, is the use of the volunteers. So in at both schools, they got to see the STARS folks working with kids. Some of the recommended practices, again, maybe there was a theme here, there was really an emphasis on developing literacy-rich, student-centered environments. So she gave some examples about, like, you've got great center work happening, you want to think about having at every center a bundle of books and some writing materials, so that if they're at a center building with blocks, there's a whole set of nonfiction books about machines and equipment and simple machines. And then you want to have some writing materials so that kids could sketch out what they want to create, so in very developmentally appropriate ways. Making sure that there's alphabet charts everywhere at student view and in the walls of the classroom. Labeling centers with pictures and with words so that students start to make those connections. So it was really helpful. And we only had one corrective action, and it was my fault, which is every spring we will put out a request for a proposal for community-based organizations to partner with us. Last year, there was only one response, and I could not find a rubric that they use to evaluate that. I don't know if you need a rubric if there's only one, but we do have to create a rubric to evaluate should we have additional folks that send in requests or proposals from that. It was exciting work, though. I'm really thrilled. So.
Can I just make one comment about that?
Yes.
Well, two, actually. One, kudos. I'm really excited to hear that the UPK full-day program is going really well. I know it was strong when it was half-day, but I think being able to offer the full-day option is really valuable and will give the students a lot of skills going into kindergarten and the stamina to make it through the day and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to go back to budget, but are we making sure that we have money in the budget for the enriched learning environment as far as literacy they're looking to have? I know it says specifically diverse books, so again, I'm sure it's in the works, but just putting it out there.
So we actually, at the last PD meeting, I met with the pre-K folks, and we started sort of shared document. What do you need? What do you need now? What, and what are we thinking about down the road, PD? And I did go into it because I was getting ready for the next PD half-day coming up on February 1st, and I noticed that one of the teachers had already put that in. The recommendation was, having these diverse books and represent it, so that they're around the room. And my final meeting with Jesse for my budget is it's tomorrow, yes. So my list is growing. And making sure that we have the resources and thinking about what else they need as far as maintaining that 18-to-1 ratio. And then also professional development. So I don't know these teachers well enough to know what PD they've had around early literacy and instruction, what they understand about science of reading. So I'm trying to get a sense of that also, and kind of put some placeholder money in for that kind of thing.
Okay, that's fair.
So I know that this is specific to the UPK, and I would reiterate the same. I'm glad it's going so well. The universal pre-K was great for my kids when it was half day. But, with these practices, I just want to ensure that we're also kind of, applying at least, the principle behind some of these to the rest of our school as well, and not just, UPK. I think the reading is especially important. I know pretty recently the second grade classes in Peter B had the PTO reach out for people to donate books because their classrooms are so sparse recently. And I know I've expressed my frustrations in the past as a parent over us lacking a full-time librarian in the two elementary schools, which I think are kind of huge for these. So I just want to make sure that we're, obviously some of these are very specific. I'm not concerned about alphabet charts in the 5th grade classroom. But, I think the general mindset behind it, I just want to make sure that we are, not just applying it to the UPK program, which of course is important, but, the UPK program having all of this great and then plopping them into classes that don't have the same support is not great, because, how much is a 4-year-old's going to retain when they're 7 if they only had it at 4?
A love of learning. Not to,
Right,
I'm going
no,
along
no,
with
I
what you're
appreciate,
saying.
and I appreciate that, but if it's not continued through the future grades, then they don't really, because kids who are 4 forget things the second that they walk away from them. You know, and so I want to make sure that we are supporting them at this level, but continuing that support through the rest of the school. You know, I personally don't love that we don't have full-time librarians. I think it's been a huge downfall of our elementary schools, or at least of Peter B., for a good number of years now. And I think it's huge for the literacy side of this, of course. You know, the more access that they have to books, the better off that they will be, the more likely that they will be to pick one up. You know, so I want to make sure, like I said, that we are focusing on this literacy beyond the universal pre-K program. And this just kind of helps to bring that to light. So, you know, I want to make sure that we're focusing on all of them. Obviously, this UPK, you know, recommendations, and I love these recommendations. I think that those are, you know, great things to include in that classroom. I just want to branch it out.
There's a classroom that needs books. Can someone please?
I can tell you the second, I mean, the PTO sent it out literally on the PTO Facebook group page because the second grade class came to them looking for funds to help support.
That's first I've heard of that.
too.
And it's frustrating.
Well, I'm glad that I mentioned it to
Please send
you.
them our direction because that's
Only
ridiculous.
exception could be is if they were looking to give books to children. The school can't do that.
I don't think that was,
Okay.
my understanding was that it was for their classroom use, that they were looking for these. So
I would
maybe you
appreciate-
could reach out
I
to-
would appreciate if that did come to you. Did you try, you know, reaching out to the district first before, you know what I mean? If-
Yeah, I was only aware because the teacher brought it to the PTO, and I
Right.
happened to be at that PTO meeting, where the PTO was, you know, discussing what they could possibly offer. So, you know,
Yeah,
I can certainly,
yes, please point them in our direction.
you betcha. Thank you.
Yep.
So just a layperson question, this science of reading.
Yes.
Is this a new method for teaching reading, or
No.
what is it, and what do we
Excellent
do in practice?
Do you want me to take you through the, so.
I'm just wondering if there's like
It's-
specific
No, it is,
things that we're
it is,
changing.
it is a body of research that speaks to, from educational researchers, neurologists, child psychologists, about how the brain learns how to read. And what has commonly been misunderstood is that it's a program and that it is only about phonics. And it really, and that was and the way they've organized the information, and I do have a draft plan of how everyone's going to get an understanding of it, the connection between reading and writing, and it's complementary, what science of reading looks like for pre-K and K, elementary and secondary. Because it really is, it's just good instructional practices.
So we're going to break this down to specific steps we take as a district to implement
Well,
this?
first, they said very clearly, please do not go back to your districts and tell people what they need to do differently now. And I completely agree. I really want people to understand, because oftentimes when we use certain phrases, people think that we're talking about the same thing, and we are not, or we have very different understandings. So I think spending some time and building that foundational understanding with folks here, with teachers, with TAs, with BAs, with administration is really important. And I think some of you know that my background is as a reading teacher, so my love for literacies and ELA is really important. And if you had asked me at the beginning of my career, what does it mean to be literate, I would be answering that in a very different way than I do now. It just, our understanding, and I think that's part of it, our understanding of what good teaching is around literacy has evolved and changed, and it's okay. That's the other thing. Like, you've been doing some things that maybe we could replace those things with a new set of tools, or some new tools.
Sesame Street.
Sesame Street is the beginning.
Yep.
So that's it.
Everything?
That's it.
Okay. Moving on to Jesse.
All right. I have a quick presentation on, I know a lot of people have been talking at last couple meetings about some transportation questions, and especially around the app, the stop app. So we've kind of, I asked Craig to come tonight and kind of discuss what we're looking to do and kind of what our plan is for the future. I did email everybody with a PDF, but I apologize, I didn't get it super early enough to
Good evening. Thanks for having me again. And I think the last time I was here, I kind of said the same thing. Kudos to our drivers and our monitors, our dispatchers, and our mechanics over there, because they got those kids home seamlessly yesterday. When I talked to, yeah, I did. I climbed the hills that we didn't want buses on. So, and I didn't realize who you were until tonight. Anyways, they did an excellent job, and needless to say, they do an excellent job every day. Despite some of the challenges they face, they still do an excellent job. Our kids here at RCS get back and forth to their education safely all the time. So, and that's only because of the teamwork that these people have. I've always been impressed with the teamwork from the RCS transportation team since I've been here. It's like second nature to these folks. So we appreciate all your support from the district office as well. It's important to us to keep delivering the same service. So as Jesse was talking to you about the new technology we're about to implement, it's to enhance and improve our service, our transportation service. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the software that the district's been using. Since 2008, they've been working with TransFinder. It's a local company. They were formed in Schenectady back in 1988 as a routing software program. And RCS has been using their software since 2008. Over the years, it's grown, it's developed, going from Schenectady to several thousand school districts across the country. So it's obviously good stuff, and RCS has been using it for nearly 16 years. Fast forward to summer 2022, my first summer, we installed the upgraded routing system, which is Route Finder Plus, and the field trip management system along with Viewfinder, which gives the schools access to see the same transportation data if they choose to use it. Anyway, so with Trip Finder, we've been able to manage our field trips and sports trips a lot better than in the past without it, than good old pen and paper. Move on to last spring, 2023, we installed and implemented Service Finder, which is part of the TransFinder management systems. It's a little bit more comprehensive than the system we were using, which was pretty much tied to an Excel spreadsheet. This system here helps us manage our maintenance system on our buses, keeping our buses safe and in compliance with regulations and laws, and we can actually track more data with it. Now, mind you, when we implement software like this, it takes a long time. It's not something that happens overnight, doesn't happen in weeks. Here we are, we're getting close to a year of having Stop Finder. And we still have challenges, but actually we rolled out Stop Finder 100% back in September, so less than a year that we've been using it fully like we are now. So that'll move us on to summer 2023 when we introduce Stop Finder on our summer routes. We did it small scale. Summer made it a little more manageable for us, and then we took the bull by the horns, and we're still chasing the bull. Anyways, on to, let me get back up a second here. Since we've started using all of these systems here at RCS, we've been able to maximize our current resources. This year, we're servicing more schools with less drivers. We use less third-party services for athletic trips over the last 2 years, and all trips have been dispatched. None have been dropped. No trips missed, no teams left on the curb. We reduced the contract transportation expense, exponentially reduced 10th period cancellations, improved communications with parents and guardians, improved safety with electronic bus passes. Kids can't just go where they want anymore on 10th period and late buses. They have to go where they're supposed to go. And so our goals are to obviously stay on track with the RCS mission and vision, continue service delivery improvements, including safety and communication. And most importantly, the safety layers that are going to be added to this. So now I'd like to move on to this year. Within the next month or so, we're going to start installing these systems. Zonar, which will give us a ground traffic control. The dispatch staff, myself, We'll be able to actually visually see where our buses are on a map at any given time, pretty much in real time, within like 4 seconds difference at most. We'll be able to extract tons of data, who's on what bus, where they're going, when they were there, turn-by-turn directions for the drivers. When we have sub-drivers or new drivers, which we have drivers, new drivers coming in, they can get on a bus and they'll actually have turn-by-turn directions that'll tell them where to go. And when they get there, they'll be able to see who they're supposed to be picking up. The pictures of our students that are in the school information system will also be in our routing system. And like if there's any question or whatever, the driver actually has access to information right there on the spot that we can assist them with. So we'll be able to extract vehicle telematics. It'll tell us the status of the operating condition of the vehicle. In real time, if there's a serious problem, we'll receive a notification. Even by text, not just by some app. We can set up the text alerts as well to notify us as management that there's a problem that needs your attention like now. Safety analytics, which includes how safe each bus is operated. You know, we brag about our drivers, now we'll be able to give you hard data about how great they really are to back it up. Location of students and employees, including where and when they boarded the bus, disembarked the bus, turn-by-turn directions, automated stop finder notifications, so you know those notifications you didn't get yesterday, Kristen, when I'm bringing your son home. There was one person in dispatch and the phones were ringing. It was crazy, so we do apologize for that. But this system's gonna help. No, yeah, absolutely. But this system's gonna help heal that problem. It's gonna give you automated notifications. You'll be able to see that your child is on a bus inside the Stop Finder app. It'll tell you attendance like 1 minute ago. We'll show you a screenshot of what it's gonna look like in just a little bit. It'll also give you alerts like your bus is 2 minutes away. And this is when your bus was last at the bus stop. It'll tell you right in the app. We're discussing piloting this technology late this spring on select bus routes, and then continue the pilot for the summer service and total rollout for September. It's not just a little undertaking. You know, Stop Finder looked big to you. This is going to be bigger because it does involve the students as well. The transportation department, myself, all of our team over there will go through in-person training with specialists from the vendors. To continue maintaining the high levels of service in the current climate, we'll be able to monitor service delivery levels. So we'll be able to look and see what we are actually doing versus what we planned. That'll help maybe help us refocus or redirect or see if there's a trouble spot somewhere. We'll be able to identify it easier, determine more efficiencies, having access to real-time automated data to build better routes, continue to improve communications, which I was just telling you a little bit about the notifications. Most importantly, the new layers of safety that you're gonna see that'll have like an immediate impact. We'll be able to account for the current location of everybody in all of the vehicles. Again, the driver safety analytics, the vehicle status. If the system believes that the bus was involved in a collision, I'll get a notification. Keep in mind, our buses are equipped with 911 buttons, so the drivers contact 911 immediately instead of contacting us. At the same time, we'll get a notification. I'll get a notification on my cell phone telling me that there's an emergency with this bus and this is where it's at. Ground traffic control, which the dispatchers can only assume where the buses are. If we're having like communication issues or whatever, the drivers can actually be alerted. They can't use the tablets to communicate while they're driving. These are permanently mounted to the bus. I don't want to say permanently mounted. They'll go inside for charging, but there's a permanent mount that they'll be attached to. So they won't be able to use it while they're driving, only for turn-by-turn directions. And it's all automated to make it easier for the driver. But being able to see where that bus is and when helps the dispatcher. Say, for example, Kristen's son missed the bus, and there's a bus coming your way that can get him. She'll be able to identify that bus quicker than shouting out to everybody and probably get a bus to these students sooner. Drivers will be able to identify students. Example, when I get out there, I really don't know a lot of the students because I don't drive on a daily basis. 10th period and 5 o'clock buses, different faces every single day, even if you have the same driver. Those are very challenging bus routes to drive. You don't know where these kids go. You know, you're counting on those bus passes. So they'll be able to identify the kids as they get on the bus because they'll have a picture and a name and the destination. The tablet will actually tell them where these kids go, and they'll be able to go there with them. If a student gets on the bus without their badge and whatnot, they'll be able to find the student, or we can push it out to the tablet for them. Drivers will be notified to check their bus, and this is important. One of our local school districts, just a few weeks ago, had a student left on board the bus the entire day. Our drivers do an excellent job getting the buses cleared before they get off the bus. But the tablets now will be able to tell them, you unloaded all your children, double check your bus. Or these children didn't get off the bus, check and make sure they're not on the bus. And it'll tell them where to bring them if there's any question, what school or their home destination, depending on the time of the day. So, yes,
Mentioned that the tablets are going to provide turn-by-turn directions for the drivers.
that's correct.
So is that dynamic based upon who swipes in? The route is generated based upon who registers on the bus for that trip?
That is for the after-school activity buses, yes.
Okay.
And if a child boards a bus with a different destination, there is some human interaction that has to happen here. We have to update it on our end. So when parents want their children to go to their friends' houses, which is very challenging because it's happening a lot these days, we will have to update it in the dispatch system before the kid boards the bus. And the system will know where that child is supposed to go. Now, if a child tries to board the bus to go to his parents' house, the driver can say, no, I didn't board him, or I allowed him on board. And the system will actually track where they get off the bus at, or it'll tell the driver, you need to take him to his home if the child isn't tracked getting off the bus. So it's a new layer of safety that we have never seen here at RCS. Some of your local schools have already started using it. Jesse and I actually went and made visits to these schools to see how they're doing it, how they implemented it. Each one of the schools had different pieces of it and did it in different orders. So I'm not saying anything's right or wrong, but I think we took the right steps. And now we took on the rest of the system to ensure the extra layers of safety.
Using the system, like using the GPS part of this.
One of them's been using it for approximately 2 years. The other one is brand new. They're just a few months ahead of us. Now, our neighboring school district, Bethlehem, they have a similar system, different vendor, but they've been using it for a few years now. So, and they got the tablets when they're all brand new and whatnot, yeah, just like the electric buses. So, but it does help. Jesse, do you want to go to the next? These are screenshots of what you'll see in the app for parents, and I know several of you here are parents, of what you'll be able to see in the Stop Finder app. If you look at the first one to the left, it'll tell you bus number whatever was at the bus stop 1 minute ago, 10 minutes ago. After so long, it tells you what time it was there. On the other screen, you'll be able to see, you know, when your student is so many stops away. Now, some of that information may be limited. You know, we don't want everybody to have access to where a bus is. You don't want other people to know where your child is. But it can notify you your child's 2 stops away, 15 minutes away. It will give you an automatic notification 2 minutes away. And if you look at the third screen, at the very top in the red there, at the beginning of the bus information where it says bus 14, it'll tell you attendance. That's where that tells you your child is currently on a bus. And I think that's what's important to parents, is that they know their child is on a bus.
Child's obviously swiping onto the bus and swiping off, so parents are getting a notification that their child's on the bus?
No, you won't get a notification. I'm sure we can set up notifications. You don't want that. You'll be able
No, I
to
was just
look.
asking.
You'll be able to look and see
Okay.
if you open the app. When you look in the schedule like this up here, you'll be able to see that, your child got on the bus a minute ago, 10 minutes ago, whatever it is.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And if they don't have their badges or their IDs, the driver will be able to just punch them in. It shows them who's supposed to get on the bus, where and when. And if they don't have their badges, they can just hit the picture and hit the green button that they're boarded the bus.
The swipe card, we know is gonna definitely be a challenge in some years of experience.
Right.
Yeah.
We're gonna slowly work it in, we're gonna talk with the schools the best way to do it. We did talk to one of the schools, he's
Yep.
pretty much has already done this, and they kind of gave us, this worked, this didn't work.
Yeah.
And they did say the younger kids were much better at it than the older kids. Yeah, the
Yeah.
younger kids are like, okay. So a lot of them, they all have these things with, and a lot of them attached right to their backpack. They'd walk on, just swipe, and they get on the bus. That'd be it. So that's kind of what we're hoping to do. with the little kids, maybe attach to their backpack or something that they always take to school every day, and just make it a routine thing that they do all the time. Okay, I get on the bus, boom, this is what I have to do. And it's very, very simple. There's other things that we need to work out with printing these cards.
Yeah.
We'll
Hey,
get
Jesse.
printers. Well, yeah.
I don't think you can be heard on the recording unless you're speaking.
I
away from the
apologize, you're right. So we are still working out ways for printing out cards. We are gonna get a printer for the transportation department. And part of this quote that we got is the first round of cards. So someone's gonna provide us with cards. That's part of the 110 that we discussed before. And then again, we're gonna have to purchase a printer to do any new people or people that lose the cards. But
One that kind of stays with the kid from year to year, they're gonna need to keep track of it.
yeah, we're all, again, it's gonna be something, we know there's gonna be kids that lose it, we know that, it's gonna be part of the process. But again, East Greenbush was very surprised how many kids just took it and went with it, and they just kinda kept it. And they also say these cards can be integrated to other systems if we decide to go down that route, with swiping in and out of classrooms and that kind of stuff too. Before Carol left, we did have a long discussion with her about implementing it with Synergy.
Yep.
So there is a part we can use with that too. So if down the line we want to integrate those swipe cards from this into that, we can do that as well. So. Sure.
Do we have, so, I know this is newer technology, especially for us. Do we have kind of a backup plan for the drivers in the event that the system fails? That, and hopefully it would not, and obviously I'm not wishing any unluckiness with this.
that's a great
But, technology sometimes fails, and I just want to make sure that we have sort of something in place that a bus driver is not now, with a bus full of kids, and no real direction.
Oops, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, no,
All
no,
right,
go ahead.
So TransFinder has a 99% uptime.
Okay.
Means less than 1% of their time they're ever down, and they're up a lot. So, we're going with a stable system, server system. And as for backup plan, it goes back to the basics, the School Bus 101. If their system goes down, then it's going to impact communication. We have ThrillShare to continue texting with the parents. I called Dr. Bailey or Michelle, hey, we got to get this communication out, so that way we're not breaking the communication piece. That would hopefully answer your question. They go back to the basics, and we, use unique or other channels for communication.
Okay, perfect. As long as we have a plan, that's all that I
We
want.
also, we could still go back to the paper, we can print them all out.
Yeah.
We always have that routing in there where kids gonna go, so worst comes to worst, we throw them back on paper.
Great.
Perfect. Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions?
Couple more quick things about what kind of we discussed at other meetings. We did throw out another blast for people to sign up for the app. and we had 60?
70.
70 more individuals sign up?
I had 2 more today.
Yeah, great. So, we're up to over 2,000 people on the app?
Almost 3,000
Almost
subscribers.
3,000 staff, students,
Parents,
guardians.
guardians, grandparents,
Great.
babysitters.
So that's awesome.
Yeah, there's almost 3,000.
And we're gonna do it a little bit more often now.
Yeah.
To try to get as many people on board, especially with this new pilot coming on board. Again, with all these new things getting set up, we're gonna start slow with a small group. More, people that can be in touch and say, hey, this doesn't work, this does work, before we implement it and work our way up to everybody having it. So I'm excited. I think this is gonna be great for safety, communication. I think there's gonna be fewer phone calls into Craig. I know as a parent, it's a lot nicer not to stand at that bus stop when it's 2 degrees. If I know my bus is gonna be there in 5 minutes, I can wait a little less out there in the cold. So I think that's gonna be good for everybody.
I was like 250 feet, so it's
Yeah.
like, oh crap, I gotta get out there.
Yeah.
But I do have a question, and I'm assuming it's all gonna be fixed with the new thing. What is still that Friday question with the times and stuff like that? Is that something that's gonna continue to be an issue, or?
Yes.
Not for me, I know when my kid gets out, but if
Right.
grandma's like, well, the app says it's not coming to 3:30, but they
It-
get out
it
at 3
is.
on Friday.
But any elementary parent gets 2 notifications every Friday.
Yep.
Reminding them the bus is gonna be half an hour earlier than what's on the schedule. At this point, that's the only solution we have.
Okay.
We could manually go in to each one of the elementary students to update those schedules, but when you make a change like that, there's like, anytime there's any other change, you gotta make 6 more changes each student. So it's not straightforward. That Friday schedule is definitely a challenge, and their programmers are working on it.
Okay.
They've been working on it for several months. But it takes a while. To get artificial intelligence to figure out what we're doing.
One more thing, we are looking into a grant as well to
Yes.
kind of alleviate some of this, the 110,000. Craig sent over a grant application today that we're both gonna work on and see if we can get some money taken off for these GPSs. So, and this is aidable, by the way.
This is what?
Aidable, transportation, aidable, so we will get money back with transportation aid next year for this.
Great.
All right,
Thank
thanks a
you.
lot.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right.
That's all I got.
That's all you got? Okay. Thanks, Jesse. Does anybody have any new business items to discuss? Okay. Is there anything under old business anybody would like to discuss? We just touched upon a few of those. If not, then we'll move into the policy adoptions. Yeah, Jackie?
Just because on my way, and I noticed the other day that the Peterby playground had a substantial amount of it that is now like roped off with caution tape.
Yeah, we're at the point where it's not safe at this point to have them on there anymore. So we are moving, working with the committee. We told them that we'd like to see any changes that they would like to see to our final updated playground. And they're gonna give this at the end of the month, and then we're gonna send it out. The contractor said 5 to 8 weeks, and then they'll install it. What they say and what they do are two things, as we know. But I have worked with this individual at a different district, and he is pretty good about his word. So I'm a little bit more optimistic with this round. So hopefully, we'll be getting that new playground very soon.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure when I saw caution
question,
tape
yep.
added. Thank you.
Yep, so we have 2 policies on the agenda for tonight. The first one, 13.1, is the workplace violence prevention policy statement, which is required by state law. We're actually under a time frame where we need to adopt this policy and then roll out training to all staff on implementing this policy, which is why we put it on for a first and second reading tonight. So hopefully everyone's had an opportunity to look at that. And if we're all comfortable, I would request a motion to approve policy 6190, the workplace violence prevention policy statement. Okay, Jenny? Second by Jackie. All in favor? Aye. Okay. And the second policy on there is the wellness policy. It's just on for a first reading this evening. So take your time to review it. If there's any comments you have on it, feel free to email Ed as the chair of the policy committee and Dr. Bailey. And that will come back on for a second reading at a future meeting for approval. Okay, there's no additional hearings or petitions this evening. A couple of upcoming activities. The next board meeting is February 7th. And then, of course, February recess is coming up towards the end of the month. Is there any other activities that anybody would like to? Nope.
For the middle school and both elementary schools. The pickup is on Friday for the bundt cakes. I know all three schools combined their fundraisers, so those will be ready for everyone to enjoy this weekend.
Okay, thank you.
At our next meeting, some representatives from Capital Zone will be here to hand over an award to one of our elementary PE teachers. I mentioned it in news and notes, but Brandon Herwick's been recognized as I think it was Elementary Teacher of the Year by Capital Zone. Brandon is extremely active in the PE community, both in the region, the state, and the country. So it's very exciting that they are going to recognize him. So they'll be here at the very beginning of our meeting to give him a I'm going to say a barbell. I don't know. Golden barbell.
All right, motion to adjourn. Jackie, second. Any? All in favor? Aye. All right, thank you.